morning, and welcome to Strictly Business. I'm your host, Penny Font. This podcast features conversations with Louisiana's most influential CEOs, entrepreneurs, and community leaders, with the goal of providing insights, ideas, and inspiration to help you and your business grow. Strictly Business is brought to you by the East Baton Rouge Parish Library. Without their support, this project would not be possible. Before we begin, here's a brief message from our sponsor.
The East Baton Rouge Parish Library believes that a thriving business community is good for us all. That's why we help entrepreneurs start businesses with tools like Gale Business Builder. Keep commerce rolling by providing access to computers, printers, and free Wi-Fi at 14 branch locations. Get a library card. Grow your business at ebrpl.com/business.
Thank you. We want to keep Strictly Business as interactive as possible, so for those joining us live, here's an icebreaker question for you. Submit your vote in the comments, and the results will be posted at the end of the webcast. Everyone's heard that data centers are coming to Louisiana. That's the headline, but it's not really the story. The real story is what happens to your business, your workforce, and your community when the most important technology in a generation shows up in a state few would have bet on. My guest has spent 30 years studying how Louisiana's economy actually changes, and he's just published the first in a series of reports on exactly this. This is Strictly Business, and today we're talking about the state of AI in Louisiana. My guest is Dr. Dek Terrell, who directs the Center for Economics, Business, and Policy Research at LSU's Orso College of Business. If you don't know the center, they do applied research in business, economics, and public affairs with a pretty clear mission: produce relevant, timely research that informs real decisions, shapes policy, and ultimately improves the health and well-being of Louisiana and its residents. And now they've pointed that work at artificial intelligence in a new series called Go AI Economy. Dek, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited about this project and talking about it.
We are too. So let's start with the series itself, because this isn't a one-time report, it's an ongoing effort. So why now? What made AI worth its own dedicated body of research at this moment? And tell us also about the series itself. What are you setting out to do across these reports, and who is the work really for?
Well, I think part of it relates to my career in general. I've done employment forecasts. I've investigated the Louisiana workforce. I've done work for LDH investigating healthcare. I've done work on all facets of Louisiana, and almost all of it has been funded research projects. And this is really an opportunity for me to say, what's a really important topic for Louisiana that's not necessarily something that a state agency has come to me and said, hey, we really want you to look at this and to really try to look at a topic in depth.
You've got a second report coming this fall and a third after that, plus annual updates and a survey series. Without making you give away the ending, can you give our listeners a glimpse into some of the more exciting things you expect to come?
Right. This report is really just an introduction to say, what does AI and technology look like in Louisiana? And it's really focused on Louisiana and what does this next technological wave mean to Louisiana? So we're not really going into a lot of detail on specific capital investments. Later on, we'll talk about the amount, which is a very large amount of capital investment. And some of these have very large state and local subsidies. For example, the Meta investment has, I think it was publicly reported to be a $3 billion subsidy to get a $10 billion investment. So there's a question of what are the trade offs in these investments? How does this subsidy compare to past investments in Louisiana? How does this affect ratepayers? How does this affect water usage in the state? So those are the kind of things that we'll look at in the second report. And we'll also look at the prospects for future projects because it turns out that Louisiana has some advantages that most states don't. And finally, the third one I think is really interesting. It's on workforce. I've spent a lot of my career looking at workforce issues in Louisiana. If you go out and look at polls of the general public, they are pessimistic about this particular technological advance by a 2-to-1 margin. And we could talk about several reasons they're pessimistic, but probably the most important one is they're worried about their jobs. That report will really look at what does this technological advance mean to the Louisiana workforce.
Interesting. I think a lot of people hear AI economy and picture a warehouse full of servers, as you've kind of alluded to. But your report lays out something much broader. I noticed there's a whole table of assets in there. So let's widen the lens. When you map out Louisiana's emerging AI economy, it's not just data centers, it's universities, federal facilities, energy, ports, manufacturing. So paint the full picture for us. Again, there's that table in the report. Who actually makes up this ecosystem?
When you look at the ecosystem, there are the really big capital investments. If you look at Louisiana winning on the LED webpage, it's $111.7 billion worth of investment. And that's since January 2024, so over about a 2.5 year period. We had about $90 billion worth of capex over an 8 year period from 2015 to 2023, which was a very large period then. There really are these really big investments. Some of them are the traditional energy. Uh, Part of it is to support the data centers, but part of it is the standard LNG projects that we've had. There's also advanced manufacturing. Then you can go and you can look at the standard things that we do in Louisiana. Some of it is taking advantage of new technology. Bollinger has new contracts for ice security cutters to patrol the Arctic. We also have standard military spending, work on roads. A lot of that is standard functions that we do in the state of Louisiana. But even things like Louisiana, LSU's dorm is going to incorporate more technology than it did in the past. So technology plays a role, even if we're just filling normal functions in the state.
Interesting. One thing that jumped out at me, you pointed NASA, Michoud, and Stennis as anchoring what you call a humanoid robotics supply chain that's rare among states. It's really not something most people associate with Louisiana, so can you unpack that for us?
Yeah, it was interesting when I saw that in my research. Part of that is Michoud, which has actually had a role in the space program going back to the Apollo program. So when you look at the Saturn rockets for the Apollo program, the boosters for the space shuttles, they were manufactured at Michoud. And today they're manufacturing additional components for Artemis, and they're actually trying to incorporate humanoid robots to do some of the building to pioneer research in that area that will allow them to work in areas that humans can't work. And then if you look at Stennis Space Center, that's a place where they tested propulsion in the past. Today, they're testing some of that robotics technology to see if those robots will be able to work in deep space environments.
Wow, it's changing so fast. Universities also show up all over this map, and they're not waiting around, obviously. LSU just launched the state's first AI bachelor's degree and runs a hub called AI Connect, and then also joined a national AI alliance alongside groups like NASA and CERN. Tulane, Southern, UL Lafayette, and Louisiana Tech are all building programs too. So, for a community leader, what role should our colleges be playing here beyond just training students?
Well, I think the first thing is we shouldn't lose sight of the traditional role of training students. As a professor, it's a challenging environment that we live in today. And a lot of times we tend to say, we've really got to focus heavily on AI and take into account that students may not have to learn those things that we've traditionally taught them. And I think even at the advanced level, we're going to need people who are able to check AI and who are able to, even if AI can solve really complex problems, did it get the right answer? And humans are also going to need to be able to ask interesting questions. So traditional education shouldn't go away. Now, on the other hand, we do have to jump into AI and say this is going to be really important and something that our students need to use. And LSU in particular has put forth a big effort creating the new major and creating the hub. If you look around the state, other universities and colleges are following suit. So it's not surprising to me that colleges and universities are trying to both fulfill their traditional role and move into AI and be able to train people in that area.
Kind of building off of that, this part of your report surprised me a bit. All this infrastructure pouring in, but when you measure how much Louisianians are actually using AI, we rank 44th out of 50 states. So your report puts Louisiana's AI usage index at, I believe, 0.38. That's 44th again in the country, below the national average. So why do you think the adoption is so slow? We're attracting the buildings, but we're near the bottom on actually putting the tools to work. So what's going on there?
Well, that index is based on the national average of one set by Claude on just access to AI. If you look at access to the internet, we still are below the national average in terms of that. And the usage of AI is still going to be driven by tech access. So states like California are going to be the top of that list. It's also going to be driven by the percentage of the population that has higher education degrees. And we're still low by those measures. So I think that's the reason that we would score a bit lower on that measure today. And I don't think that's surprising.
You make a really important point that this ranking is a baseline, not a ceiling, and that adoption is actually accelerating fastest in the states that started lowest, like Louisiana. So the practical question for our audience is this: what can a business leader or community leader actually do to help close that gap?
Well, I think one thing that's important to realize is that the early stages of building data centers don't require people to use those AI engines. You're talking about people going out and doing the traditional industrial construction that we do in Louisiana. Some of that's blue collar, but some of that's also designing the facilities. So that doesn't necessarily say we're not benefiting from data centers just because we score low on that index. If you're an individual business owner and you want to try to raise that score for your business, I think you really have to do a little bit of an audit and say, how can AI be beneficial in my particular business?
So let's talk about the people who make the state run, because Louisiana is a state that builds things, fabricates things, works with its hands. Your report gives leaders a really useful framework, 5 ways AI actually reconfigures a workplace. You call them consolidation, segmentation, elevation, displacement, and creation. For an executive listening who's trying to plan a headcount, kind of walk us through those 5. Which roles get merged, which get split, which get elevated, which get reduced, and which get created?
I think that's going to vary dramatically by industry. So I want to use the example. My wife is a finance professor and teaches banking. And for 30 years, she's been able to educate students. And if they work hard, they're going to be able to get a job at a community bank and support their family for many years. So how does that affect banking? And if I look at that, the first thing that I would say is in terms of consolidation, if you go and talk to a loan officer, that loan officer can take the application, they can use AI to verify income, to verify other information in the application. They can send it through underwriting software, and they can go from the application to the closing process. So that may reduce the need for as many people in those roles as banks. The other four items that we were talking about were segmentation. Segmentation was the idea that you're splitting the role between a human and AI. So, in terms of banking, you could have an underwriter that enters information that uses AI to verify the information on that application, and then the underwriter makes the ultimate decision, which may be a close call. And you could bring more information into the decision making process. The next one is elevation. And elevation would be finding somebody who does a particularly good role in a bank. For example, there may be some officer who meets with people and is able to use AI to sell them more products than you would normally expect. My student worker who helped me on this project, Artem, is incredible at using AI, and he may be somebody who benefits from elevation because he gets promotions for being able to use AI so well. And then the other one that we all are concerned about is displacement. And there's the idea that tellers or people who take customer service calls for banks are going to be displaced at some point. I'm one of the people that doesn't often call to get my balance. I'm one of the people that's yelling representative, representative, representative to try to talk to a human. Um, but if you look at the research that's being done on this, one of my former students and employees now works for Google, and he's designing avatars that would carry on a conversation just like we're having this conversation to be able to answer questions. So the future may be that AI is going to be much better at customer service, answering a lot of different questions and not frustrating us as much as it does today. So that's where that displacement comes in. And finally, creation is responding to the idea that there are going to be more regulations. The state's going to really want to know how AI is being used in these processes. So there are going to be some jobs created uh, complying with the regulations that the state and federal government has on how AI is being used.
That's a lot of great insight. Thank you for sharing that with us. There's a line in the report that I loved. You quote Mike Rowe as saying he hasn't seen any plumbing robots or electrician robots yet. The idea being that, and this is pretty widely understood, that AI may hit digital work faster than physical work. So, in a state where industrial fabrication and skilled trades are everywhere, does that make Louisiana more protected initially, do you think?
I do think it makes Louisiana more protected initially. And I think there are several reasons for that. One is robots are, even humanoid robots that are advanced, are really good at repetitive exercises. They're not necessarily really good at things that are chaotic, climbing ladders, crawling under houses, squeezing into tight places. They're not necessarily really good at looking at environments where you may have one technology mixed with another technology. If you go into my house, there may be three different types of wires or four different types of wires, and a human electrician immediately knows how to address that. A humanoid robot would have to be programmed and have to advance a bit to be able to do that. And I think the other thing that's an advantage for Louisiana is our industrial mix. Um, we have a lot of humans that are really good at various facets of industrial construction, If you have a $10 billion data center, maybe you can automate a lot of things, but you really want that cooling system to work. It's not like having an air conditioner go out at my house, which is bad enough in July. If you have a cooling system go out on a data center, that's a really big problem. And you probably want humans there to be able to control all facets and probably back up all facets where the risk of that cooling system going out are extremely low.
Absolutely. It's interesting to me that this is almost the reverse of the last wave. The information age was said to widen the gap between college and non-college workers. But you write that many experts expect this wave to spread opportunity more evenly across education levels. So talk to us about why AI would be more equalizing than the internet was.
Well, I think a lot of it is based on the academic literature. There's always a difference of opinion among academics, but some of the early studies do show that. The second thing is just logically, what do different people do? And the digital economy is made up more of people that are highly educated. If you look at the information age, what that allowed people to do is individuals who had access to the internet early on, they had access to that education. They were able to do far more, and they got paid more because they were able to do more. I think the in a task-based economy, some of that's going to shift around, and that may change the distribution between the highly educated and people who have other skills.
So I want to revisit education. Is our education and training system ready for this? We talked about what LSU is doing, but in more broadly, not just the four-year universities, the community colleges, the apprenticeships, the incumbent worker programs, all of that. Is that ready for AI in your view?
Report three is going to look at that in a lot more detail. I would like to relate one study or one event in my past that had a deep impact on me. We went around the state probably 2 decades ago with Raj Jindal and Kurt Eisning. And we were presenting our forecast, occupational forecast results for each of the 8 regions of Louisiana. And there was employers that would speak at each region. And there was one guy in Bill Platt that stood up and talked about how the incumbent worker program allowed him to retain 6 workers and what a big impact retaining those 6 workers had on their lives and on his life. And that was really moving to me. And that's something where, if you really look at the history of apprenticeships and the incumbent worker programs, those programs have a long history. And I think they have the background to move forward and adapt to the new technology.
So, for the entrepreneurs and business owners watching, let's talk opportunity. With so much capital flowing into the state, what's the opening for Louisiana small businesses and entrepreneurs? Where do you see startups and new companies coming from? And what's the support structure that has to exist for a Louisiana founder to actually capitalize on this rather than watching the value flow out of state?
I think Louisiana businesses can capitalize just like they have on past uh, inflows of capital. We mentioned cooling and HVAC before, which is not doesn't necessarily sound like it's high tech. It will be high tech in a data center. It will be more high tech than it is in my house, but that's an important opportunity. Fabrication, a lot of the standard things that we're good at in Louisiana, there are just going to be more and more opportunities. Even support for workers that come from outside Louisiana. I think Hyundai has talked about bringing in at the early stages, some of their own engineers from South Korea, providing the lodging and the food, things of that nature, is going to be an opportunity. So there will be a lot of opportunities in Louisiana. Our entrepreneurs are just going to have to do what entrepreneurs always do and invest the capital and take the risks to take advantage of it.
Very good point. You write about existing industries getting more efficient. Petrochemical plants already using sensors and autonomous monitoring instead of people walking around reading gauges. Where else do you see AI quietly making Louisiana's core industries more competitive?
I think if you look at the data on a lot of the manufacturing industries in Louisiana, over time they've increased output per worker significantly. And the way economists talk about technological progress, ever since Solo, who I mentioned in my report, is the idea that they increase output per worker. So whether that per worker means that they maintain the same level of output and reduce the workforce slightly, or they're able to increase output with the same level of workforce, that's the way that the existing businesses can benefit.
So let's take a little bit of a deeper dive on that. For a professional who runs a mid-sized company here, not a tech company, just a normal Louisiana business, what's the first place they should be looking to potentially put AI to work?
What I would say is if I were a mid-sized business, I would kind of do an audit of how my workers are currently using AI. A lot of times, workers are doing things with AI that you may not be aware of. So it would be a good thing to talk to workers and come up with a plan of how you think they're using it. The other thing is, I talked to one of my cousins who actually is an executive in a large company, and he said one of their challenges was proprietary information. You've got to, when you employ AI, be careful that AI preserves that proprietary information. So even a mid-sized business, before you upload all of your clients' data, you need to know how it's going to be treated by AI and whether your competitors are going to get access to that data. And then the final thing that I would mention, there's a commercial on TV that I see where the owner of the business seems to do almost everything. He's the HR director, he's in charge of sales and so forth. My father owned a small business, and the owner or the manager of these small businesses tend to do an awful lot. AI can help them do a lot more and do it better once they get past those hurdles of proprietary information. They can also ask their employees to employ it in specific ways once they've done that audit and made decisions as to how it's safe to employ AI.
Some great advice there. Thank you. I want to close on something that isn't in most economists' reports. You spend real time on preserving what makes this state special. You write about protecting the things that make Louisiana unique, the culture, the communities, the natural beauty, the sportsman's paradise. So why, as an economist, did you feel the need to put that front and center in a report about AI investment? Talk to us about that first.
Well, I've spent most of my career, I would say 30 years, on and off doing economic impact studies. So I've worked with LED, I've worked with firms, I've occasionally appeared before the legislature, and my objective was always to support industrial development. I think we're reaching a scale where we need to really ask the question, does this industrial project make the state better off? Where our goal is not just attracting the investment, but are people's lives becoming better for them? And if you've traveled around the state, there are places where you could have capital investment and it wouldn't be productive. I've spent time in Vermilion Parish looking out into the bay, and I wouldn't want to see offshore windmills. We wouldn't want any sort of development around the French Quarter that interfered with the quality of the French Quarter. Uh, I'm from rural Mississippi, and we don't necessarily want solar panels everywhere in rural Louisiana. So I think that's something where we do need to start making uh, decisions based on, does it improve people's quality of life, particularly now that we have an area where we have a comparative advantage that most states don't have. And we're going to have some great opportunities. We just need to make wise decisions on how to take advantage of it.
So 5, 10, 20 years from now, how will we know whether this actually worked? What should our audience be watching?
I think a lot of it would be to ask whether the lives of an average Louisianan are better. So there are some things that are obvious. Has income improved? Have we made progress on poverty? Have we made progress on education? The standard things that you would worry about. But I also am concerned about, whether the average Louisianan can do the same things that they could do before this large industrial development. Can they still go out and hunt and fish in Northeast Louisiana? Can they still go out and do the things they used to do in South Louisiana? Do they have a real human existence where they appreciate human art and interaction with other humans just as much as they used to before there was this giant digital world out there with social media and all of these other things to distract them away from standard human interaction? So I think those are the things that are important to look at.
I love that insight. All right, last question. If there's one thing you want business owners and community leaders listening, watching to do differently after this conversation, not just think, but do, what might that be?
I would really want to see community and business leaders begin a serious conversation about what they would like the future to look like. Some of the decisions are already being made. We have the technology to put cameras at every red light and give people a lot more tickets for running red lights. We could measure speeding a lot more accurately and give a lot more speeding tickets, right? But we don't necessarily do that. There's going to be a time. I have a friend with a Tesla who says that self-driving cars are going to be much safer than human cars, so maybe we need to ban human cars. Do we ever really want to prevent humans from having that experience of driving? Another area where I think it stimulates part of people's fears of AI is that AI is somehow going to take over in places we don't want it to take over. So it might be that Louisiana wants to insist that we have humans involved in security in important uh, secure areas like the energy plants around data centers or data centers themselves. And there are debates even now going on when new plants are built, whether you resort to just a reader card for people to get in the facility or whether you have human security guards as well. I can remember years ago after Katrina, we couldn't survey firms by phone to see if they were open. So I sent somebody to take pictures to show whether firms were open or not. And one of them went to the Marathon refinery. It took very little time for the sheriff to appear and take the film and say, you're not allowed to take pictures of the Marathon refinery. So uh, I think there's a decision that we need to start making now, just because of the speed at which technology is moving, on which roles we want humans to continue to play an important role in.
Dek, this has been fascinating. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Thank you so much for the conversation. It's been very insightful. We appreciate it.
And thank you for having me.
The report is Go AI Economy, the first of a series, and it's out now with a survey and more installments on the way. So this is a conversation that's going to keep going. Dek Terrell, thank you for the work and for joining us. And thanks also to our viewers for tuning in, as well as our sponsor, the East Baton Rouge Parish Library, for making this experience possible. Enjoy and make your day a great one.